Web3.
Greetings, developers, hackathon participants, and metaverse architects. Welcome to another workshop of 1-2 Web3. I'm Phil, head of events for Moralis, and I'm here today with another member of our team, Bill, who leads our front-end guild. Now, this is a special live stream today because we're going to go over front-end enhancements that can be used in any project that's part of this hackathon. It doesn't matter which track you're pursuing or what you're developing. We want to show how to make your front end better. Bill, welcome to the stage.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me, Phil. It's great to be here.
Well, we're really glad to have you. And I understand that to get us started, you have some slides to share. And why don't we jump right into it? We're going to take questions throughout during this live stream, since it is both Moralis core team members running this one. So feel free, if you have any questions, shout them out. We're going to be monitoring the chat, and we're going to take as many questions as we can live. All right, Bill, take it away.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Phil. Always good to work with you and be a part of the team. Thanks and welcome everybody to the presentation today. I'm going to take you through a few different things about front end and a few lessons I learned the hard way maybe, and hopefully I can share some knowledge with you guys today and inspire you to get even nicer user interfaces for your project. So let me go ahead and share my screen right now, Phil, and you can let me know when you are seeing my presentation, buddy.
All right, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay, welcome everybody to the front end workshop for this hackathon event. Just a little introduction, just to let you know that all the great APIs, it doesn't matter, your scalable backends, your blockchain data, your NPM packages, all of that, they mean nothing without a killer user interface and a mindset for amazing user experience. Everybody knows this amazing company with great products called Apple. Why did Apple succeed where everybody else failed? And why is everyone trying to replicate them? Because they focused on the user first. They made everything super easy to use and super easy to understand, and just broke away into a new market where everything was quite complicated before that. So if you have that same mindset of focusing on your user first, you will make a much more successful application in the end. So just a quick introduction. My name is Bill Gilmore. I'm Bill Gill on Twitter. I'm always really happy to connect with people. You can reach out to me anytime with any questions whatsoever. I've always got your back when it comes to front-end needs. I'm the front-end lead here at Moralis. I was the first front-end developer or the first dedicated front-end developer anyway, to work at the company, and I've been very lucky and had great opportunity here, and I'm loving every minute of it. So thank you for being part of our event, and it's really nice to be able to give something back to our community. It really gives me a sense of purpose in my job. So quickly, I just want to talk about what is front end. Front end, most importantly, is a great interface. If your clients can't use the really great APIs or the really great backend or the really amazing Web3 solution in a very easy way that's intuitive to understand and intuitive to interact with, it's just never going to see the light of day. You need to make it nice and friendly for people to use. Secondly, you need to really focus on user experience. Like, what are the people going to use this application for? How can you make it super easy for them to understand? Trial and error, let people use it, take feedback from them, and try to make the user experience as best as possible. Luckily, we have a lot of these nice things like the great UI and the great UX already built into Web3 UI Kit. So it's a great starting point for anybody who's getting into front end. Also, you want to have a really nice, reliable cross-device feel. So I don't want to log in with my desktop and then later on come back with my mobile and see something completely different, or even worse, exactly the same, where like I'm getting the whole desktop information on this really tiny screen and I'm having to go left and right and all those sort of things. Also, imagine that I'm not using your application on my computer. Imagine I'm accessing it via a smart TV. You want to make sure that you have the same reliable cross-device feel for everything. And importantly as well, number 4, web accessibility. This means a lot of things we're going to step into in a second, but it's a little bit more than adding a few ARIA tags, which is what I'm commonly told when I ask people. If anybody has any questions, by the way, please shout them out. Phil will interrupt me, which I've asked him to do. So I always like to start with a meme. This is a bit of an oldie, but a goodie for me because my name is Bill. If anyone remembers that this is Bill. Bill always uses semantic HTML5. Bill never uses CSS bloat libraries. You should be like Bill, and you can be a great front-end developer. So let me give you a quick guide on how we'll be starting our app. I'm guessing as you're in this hackathon, you know a couple of the first steps already. So we have our need for data. Obviously, all applications are data-driven. For that, we have the amazing Moralis, our backend team, and our Web3 team do such great work to make all of this very easily digestible data for you in APIs. So that's a great place to start. Next of all, you're going to need a backend. You kind of have 2 different versions here with Moralis. You can either use our servers for rapid prototyping, or you can go for a third-party solution like maybe Firebase, or you can even build your completely own backend if you're more of a backend developer and you have more skills there. It's very open now with the new Moralis 2.0. Things are very, very open for you to control it whatever way you want. Next, you're going to need probably a front-end UI kit, unless you fancy making everything from scratch, which I don't recommend because you don't have a single source of truth for all of your styles or all of your functionality. So Web3 UI kit's a great start-off point for this. It has all the things that you'll need, like form elements, like buttons, like layouts, like images, icons, and then obviously all of our cool Web3 stuff too. So the next thing you're going to want to think about is, even though you have all of those blocks in place, you think you have everything, you got your data, you got your backend, you got your front end, you really need to think about things like semantic markup. So we're going to have a quick look at HTML5 and see why it's so important for cross-device accessibility, for search engine optimization, really key parts of any successful application. And then next up, we have CSS, which my motto is always CSS is best. It seems to me like over the years, the desire to learn CSS has become less popular, but the feature set has become more powerful, which seems crazy. So I'm really hoping that I can encourage and inspire you today to take a deeper dive into CSS when I show you some of the cooler features. And most importantly, last on my list here is accessibility. Web3 to me is about being inclusive. It's about being kind to others and making your application as accessible to as many people and as many devices as possible. It is a really, really big part of success. So let's take a look at HTML5. It's not just div, 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 as I've said at the top here. I do see this a lot with React developers lately, is that everything is just a div. But please, let's try to stay away from that. That isn't good for a lot of reasons. It's not good for accessibility for screen readers to read your content. It's not good for search engine optimizations to understand what your application is doing or what your web page is rendering. And I have a whole bunch of examples of things down here. I guess some of the easier ones kind of talk about first is kind of like header and footer, the top and the bottom ones. It's probably pretty clear to most people. You know, your header's at the top of the page, your footer's at the bottom. But using these tags instead of a div indicates to the browser like what part of the website it's looking at. Other ones like that include nav, which is very key for navigation. It means that like a search engine crawler can look into your application. It can see that it has a navigation. It can then search those links, see where they lead to, and it lets the crawler build a tree structure in its memory of like what your whole application is, what it does, what content is on each page. Then you have some other cool ones like article. So if you were building a blog, you'd want to wrap all of your articles inside the article tag. And that would mean that anytime the crawler gets into that part of the site, it would know that this is a blog post, and it would know to look at the other blog posts, like how these things are related together and like what parts are content, what parts are functional. Also, we have other things like unordered lists and list items. These can be really, really important because when you're looking at a navigation, what is a navigation on a website? It's basically a list of pages that you can link to. So anything that is a list should be inside a UL tag, and anything that's inside that unordered list should be an LI, a list item. So using these structured HTML tags gives a really, really good look and feel to your site. It makes it easier to style, but more importantly, it makes it very, very functional and work much better with cross-browser compatibility. Then you have other things like, for example, a button and an A, like an anchor. I see these things being mixed up very, very frequently, but there's kind of key differences between them. A button should be used to perform an action on a page, whereas an anchor should be a link. And an anchor can have all different sorts of attributes to it that make it more understandable. For example, if you were going to use your anchor link to link to an external website like Moralis.io, you can add extra attributes to that to say things like target equals blank, which would mean that the browser automatically knows to open up another window without you having to write the JavaScript for that. You could say things like rel equals no opener, which means that whenever your site is being indexed, it knows that it's going to an external site, and to stop indexing your site at that point and not try to index the next site that you link to, which would really hurt your search engine optimization. Big word, hard to say. And then you have some other simple ones like input. We're going to look at that in a little second. So CSS is very, very cool. This is where the magic happens in, by the way, we're going to have a look at some of these tags in just a second and examples too. But CSS is really where the magic happens. I got some really cool examples for you here. Excuse me, it is very warm in my living room at the minute. So we have things like fluid layout. Why is that so important? Well, like we said earlier on, we want your application to work really well on every device. It doesn't matter if it's a 4K screen on an ultra wide monitor. It doesn't matter if it's a 32 pixel wide mobile device. We want to have a really good flexible layout. So let's have a quick look at what a good and a bad version of a flexible layout. Any questions or any comments for me so far, Phil, or do you want me to mosey on here?
Nothing so far. So let's keep going. Perfect. And I will interrupt you, I promise.
No problem. No problem. Thank you very much. So let's have a look at two examples here. Let's bring this up a little bit. This, by the way, is a website called codepen.io. So all these examples you're going to see today are inside my profile on codepen.io, which is the same as my Twitter profile. It's just /BILLGIL. So we have two examples here, basically the same website, okay? So you can see the same content is in there, same content is in here. If we look at the HTML here, you can see it's exactly the same in both. Okay, so we have the same thing in both. Now, why is one more responsive than the other? Because in this first example, what we've done is a common mistake that people would make when they're trying to do their responsive layouts is that we have everything kind of using this thing called position. Now, there is use cases for position in CSS, but layout is not one of them, okay? So this is a very common thing I see. We want the header to be at the top of the website, right? So it makes sense. We're going to absolutely position it to the top. That seems to make perfect sense, but it's not very good because it means that it's stuck here forever and it will never move. Then we have the same for the aside. It makes perfect sense, right? Absolutely position it to the left. Then we have the same for the main. It's kind of a bit stranger. We'll have to use padding here. Let's remove the padding and find out why this absolute positioning is not good. So I've removed it, and you saw that let me see if I can make this a bit smaller. You saw that this whole content now has just completely folded in on itself. So let's bring it back again. It needs to be padded out. So it doesn't know where its edges is. It thinks the edges are the sides of the page, which is not good. Then we have the footer. It's fixed to the bottom. That can kind of have its own problems too. So what happens if the header gets bigger? Okay, so let's say the page maybe gets smaller, so this text doesn't fit in, or maybe the design team say, hey, let's do something really crazy. Let's add in 3 more H1s. Okay, this will never happen, by the way. You won't have 3 H1s, but just as an example, they add more content to it. Okay, your page gets smaller, then whoa, holy crap, this header has grown, but this stuff really has like gone a weird turn. We don't know what's going on here. So what do we have to do to fix this? Let's see. We need to go to the aside, and the top is 20, but maybe if we made that like 300 pixels from the top, maybe a bit less. Let's go 250. It's kind of getting there. Let's go 200. Yeah, okay, that's not too bad. Then we need to do the same for this. The padding top was 80, but we need to bump it up to about 200. Yeah, now we can see the front-end guild, the title we want to see. So you can see very quickly that without one small change, this has all become a little bit broken. Let's say that maybe the design team decide that we want to have something much bigger in the sidebar, or we want to make it way smaller. Let's make it smaller. So it comes with them all, the stuff inside it adjusts, but at least this big white gap here. So now we have to change this. So imagine this is just one page, like one layout on one page. Imagine this is your template for your entire application that has to house many different types of content in the header, many different types of content in the sider, different sizes of content in the middle. It just becomes a big mess very, very quickly, and you'll be having fix after fix after fix after fix. This is bad. This is not what we want. Let's get rid of this forever. Okay, hold on. Actually, let me cycle it back so it's here if anybody wants to have a look at it later. There we go. And then we remove this, I think. Boom, 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 boom. I think that should be us. Okay, then it was just... okay, I'll fix it later for you guys. Don't worry. So let's leave this. Okay, let's not save. There we go. Leave. No saves. Okay, so here's the same thing, but so much better. Now the page I can change the layout here. Yeah, let's go sidebar view. The page can get bigger and smaller, and it adapts. Look, the header can go over 2 lines. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, but if I add in those 3 H1 tags again, 4 or 10, doesn't matter. There we go. There we go. So it renders everything. It grows and contracts to the size of the content and to the size of the screen. And that is what we really mean when we say responsive. When the word responsive doesn't mean that you've added 15 breakpoints so that things can get smaller and smaller and smaller. It means that it's responding to the size of the content and it's responding to the size of the page. Now, how do we achieve this? Much less CSS is the answer, actually. So what do we have now? We have our header, and it has no positioning. It's just sitting there because it's the first thing in the HTML. Why would it need to be positioned? It doesn't need to be. It's already the first thing in the HTML. It's just going to sit there. So we removed the positioning. That was simple. Then we added a new div called flex wrap. And what did I put in here? I just very simply display flex. What does display flex do, in case you're completely new to this? Let's take it away. Let's take it away. Okay, well, let's put it display block. Actually, that's another setting, which means full width, like a block of Lego. Nothing goes around it. So now you can see that we have our content, we have our sidebar, and we have our footer. That's what it would look like normally. A normal div by default is display block. Then if we change this to display flex, it means I'm going to flex these two things, which means I'm going to force them to sit left and right of each other. You can also do some really cool stuff. Oh, I've already done it, actually. There's a very, very nice trick you saw here that if we went back to block again, block, you can see that actually the content comes first. And that's actually probably good because we want to read the H1 on the website for search engine optimization. We want to read the H1, the heading, the title. Then we want to go through the content of the site. And the next thing we want to index is our links and things like that. But that is the order we want to see it in, or that we want it to be read in, but the order we want to see it in is different. We want to see the sidebar, then the content. So because these two items, which are main, this is our main tag that we talked about earlier on. This is showing us the main part of the website. I don't know if I actually put that on my list, but it's the main part of the website. And then the aside, there it is. The aside is the sidebar. So using those semantic HTML tags, header, footer, main, and aside, we've shown Google or whatever search engine that we have structured layout to our content, and it makes it very easy for it to understand. But you can see the aside is second. That's because I've added this property. It's called order, a CSS property, which means I can change where it goes on the page. So if I change that to, you can see that main is set to 2. If I set this one to 3, there we go. It now appears on the right-hand side, but we'll keep it where it is for now. But yeah, it doesn't matter what height it is or what width it is, because I flex these two items, they're going to sit beside each other and they're always going to make room for each other. Main is actually set to 100% width, so it will fill up everything that isn't taken up by the width of the aside. And if you hit the occasion where you want them to break over each other, you can always add in flex wrap, and wrap. And then they will fit in beside each other because this one is 500 and this one is 100%. So that's 100% plus 500 pixels. So instead of we making this one 100% width, we could always do something very cool with CSS called calc. So I'm going to calculate the width, which should be 100% minus 500 px. And that didn't work because that's the header. Live coding, guys, don't do it. It doesn't make sense. 100%. Okay, now this is the main. Not width 100%, but width calculated minus, there we go. Perfect. So now they sit in beside each other, which is much nicer. And we could even use some variables and stuff for that later on. Any questions about CSS flexing or layouts, or shall I move on to the next one? Let's move on. I'm not going to save that either. So one of the other things, I kind of talked a little bit about flex there. There's also another thing called grid. Grid is much better for, say, for example, I didn't want to just have my two elements sitting next to each other, which could be the main and the aside, or it could be an input and a button, something as simple as that. Grid is very good for when you want to be able to play with the header, the main, the aside, the footer, the second aside. Maybe you have a 3-column layout. You want these things to change order when they collapse in and stuff. That's when grid is much more powerful. I would only use grid for like large layouts, and anything else to do with like laying out things next to each other, I would always use flex. So that's just like an easy rule of thumb. But if you're looking to make a really nice responsive grid layout, there's some really great tutorials out there. Okay, next up is breakpoints. I would say my advice would be a fluid layout doesn't require too many breakpoints. What breakpoints are really good for is if the design changes. So maybe when you're looking at it on desktop view, you want to have a nice long list of all the pages like this, like a nice long list of every page you can link to. But when you go to mobile, you want that to not even be a list anymore. You want it to be a select. So you can click on the select, it shows the list of all the pages. Then you click on one and it loads that page. They're two different elements, okay? We have a nav tag with a UL and LIs inside it with lots of A's to link to the pages. But on mobile, we have a select. So two different things. So that's when I would use a breakpoint. Here's a nice example of an easy breakpoint. Where did I put it? Okay, so everything right now, we are displaying flex and we have the wrap on so that it can, let me change this layout. We're using flex again. And we have wrap, which is right here, which means that it will break onto more lines. It won't force it to be on one line. It will break onto others. And everything is set to width 25% until we get to a screen which is less than, so this is your media query. At media, only screen, and because you can have print or whatever, we don't need that anymore. It's the olden days. Only screen and max width 800. So you guessed it, when the screen comes less than 800, pop, the layout changes. Now, this is, again, kind of the opposite of what I just said, because this is a layout, but I wouldn't use it for layouts. I would much rather prefer to go with a fluid kind of a flow rather than doing this. Like if I was going to change two different elements, the breakpoint is perfect. So as soon as it becomes less than 800, the breakpoint changes and it changes the CSS. So you could even say like, anything you want in here would completely change. We could go to display none. And then when we are up here, we see it, and then boom, it disappears. So that's a media query breakpoint. Very, very nice, powerful tool for when you're trying to change the view from one thing to another. Okay, let's leave this one too. I don't want to save these examples in case anybody wants to look at them later. Okay, so here's a really cool one. Before and after tags. What is a before? What is an after tag? So there's a couple of things. I think I have a very nice example. Okay, here's the after here. So we have a very nice example of a before and after. We want to have this is a little content accordion that I built. By the way, in these examples, you're going to see a lot of Bill Murray's face. There's a very nice tool called Phil Murray, and it just makes like pictures of Bill Murray for your app, just as like placeholders. You know, you don't want to be looking for images all the time, so it's nice when you're trying to rapid prototype. We got lots of nice pictures of Bill Murray here. Again, let me change this layout. I think it looks a little bit better in side view. Okay, so we got a nice accordion here. And one of the cool things at the end of the accordion is we have this little guy here. If you watch him, he swings around, okay? So that could maybe be a little bit difficult, except that we can bring in icons or whatever there, but I've gone for a very simple approach of an arrow. And that is done through this really nice thing called an after. Let's ignore the JS that's in here for now. It's very, very simple. It just kind of open and closes. We can basically ignore the HTML too. It's very simple as well. Here's a nice HTML tag, though. It's a section. So you have many sections of your site. And this is better than a div because it shows the browser you've broken out from this section into the next section. Another nice HTML tag. But let's close that. So what we want to look at right now is a couple of things. Have I mentioned variables yet? No, we haven't got that. We'll do that in a bit. But I have some CSS variables. We'll talk about this in a second. And also, we have this really cool thing called an after. So if I, for example, let me just remove this content tag. And you'll see all of those guys are gone now. So that's how we created this. We have this little thing called the ACC item title, which is this title here. This is how it's styled. You can see that its color is here. It's up here, actually, sorry. You can see that its color is color 1. We can change this to red. Boom, you can see that they're all red. So we have our titles up here, which they give it color, they give it a background color, all those nice stuff. And then it's set to position relative, so that anything that is set to position absolute that's inside this will be stuck inside it. So let's move down here to the after. So this is exactly the same class name as you see above, but there's this extra little bit of magic here where I've written :after, and this creates a new element that does not exist in the HTML. So you don't see it in my HTML up here. There's no mention of underscore title. There we go, ACC title. There's no arrow. It's just an H2 because the arrow doesn't mean anything semantically. It would be, there's no need for it to be read by a screen reader. There's no need for it to be read by Google. It doesn't matter. It's not like a semantic part of the website. It's purely for display. So this is when the after or the before pseudo tag are very, very powerful because there's nothing actually rendered in there. It's just done kind of on the fly at the very end. In fact, if we inspect the HTML here, look inside, you can see there it is right there. This thing is called a pseudo element. It doesn't really exist, but it does get rendered. So we could change it to be whatever we wanted. This little /003E is there's a word for it. It's like the code that generates that icon. I can't remember what you call that, but let's say I put in Phil in here. The content is Phil, and now I can put Phil's name around and around. So the content can be anything. The content can be an SVG. The content can be an image. Where did I get that thing from? I can't even remember. But yeah, you can use these little short codes that render in different kind of icons for you. I thought I heard you cough there, Phil. I thought you were going to tell me something, but we're all good.
So just to clarify here, what I was actually just to clarify, when you're modifying the content there, if you're using a code like that, you're pulling up a specific character. But if you're just giving it your own title, what's the value in that?
Well, it wouldn't be just a title. It could be like /assets/images/ mage.svg. It could be anything. So I could have that mage stored, that image SVG stored in there, and it could literally, it could render that SVG instead of just like I just chose. I think they're called like ASCII. Is it ASCII icons or something?
I think you can correct.
Literally.
Yeah.
You can literally render anything into that. So it doesn't just have to be like text or one of those little icons. It can kind of be whatever you want it to be in there. Just by using this icon with this, it means that it's easy for me to style it, say with this font weight being 600. If I put that to 1, it becomes very thin. Oh, maybe it actually looks nicer.
Got a comment in the chat that the text was tough to read. So are we able to zoom in at all, Bill?
Yes,
just to help
that's
with
a
that.
good comment. Thank you. Thank you.
I know it can be a little tough with on live stream because we don't know what size everybody's watching it on.
Yes, yes, good call. Yeah, so we then, let me recap real quick, is that we have this title class, which is just the name of a div. Its position is relative, so that anything is positioned absolutely inside it is stuck inside there. And then we're using this after tag. And then the most important thing, actually, like you can take away any of this. It doesn't matter. All of this is just for styling. Hold on. You can take away literally all of this, and you can take away this, and you'll still see it here. It won't move, it won't be colored, it won't be positioned. The only really, really important thing that will not work without is this content. So if you didn't want it to be, if you wanted it to be something else, like you could just say content empty string, but it needs to have content. Otherwise, it does not render on the page at all. And we'll just bring those back, and there we go, it's back again. So that could be all sorts of different things. You know, you could use that to render in like a nice $sign. If you were doing pricing, you could use it to render in an SVG. You could use it to render in some sort of prefixed text, like price equals or whatever. Something basically that like you don't need to be indexed. It's more for display things, actually. It's things that you don't need a search engine optimization or a search engine reader or a screen reader don't need to be aware of it. It's good for things like that. Guess what? There's loads of examples I use after like pretty much every day. There's loads and loads of, and you can also, if you wanted to, don't forget that there's always the before tag. Unfortunately, 2 is the limit, but we could put in before in this one. Type in hi and remove everything else. Whoops, hard to deal with this zoomed in, but definitely better for stream. So there we go. Like you can have always in every element. By the way, not every element, only elements that aren't self-closing. So for example, an input only has the first tag. It never has a close input tag. But a div has an open and a close. So it needs to have an open and a close tag. Any element that has open and close, you can have a before and an after. Okay, let's move on. I'll show you some more before and afters. Maybe that was a bit of a complicated example, actually. They're the whole way through this, through all of these tutorials. Text truncate, another cool trick of CSS. This is so handy. Like, I don't know. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Oh, this could be another good one for before and after, I think. Oh, yeah. Let me show you this for before and after. This is really cool. So HTML again, good HTML to have. The page starts with an H1, which shows the browser what the most important statement of the page is. This should never be your logo, by the way, guys. Never ever have your logo as your H1. The H1 should be like the title of the page, that like the first thing that the reader should know about. That should be the H1. This is just reasons why this list is better. So basically, this is an ordered list, an OL. If I take away this class to remove all the CSS, you'll see what it is. There, it's just an ordered list. So an ordered list gives numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in this case. And then what we want to do is we don't want to use those crappy like HTML rendered numbers. We want to make ours look super fancy. So am I styling this? Am I styling these numbers? Nope, not at all. We're using before and after and something really cool. So let's go down, got our H1, got our ordered list. Okay, here's where the magic happens. On the list items, we want to have the counter increment set to custom counter. That's very important. So on each LI, on each list item, counter increment equals custom counter, sorry, dyslexia kicked in there. And now that we're going to add it up before. So again, where's our content? Let's remove this so you can see that nothing is possible without that content. Just a bunch of simple statements now, not actually styled like ordered list at all. But for our content, we're going to use a counter, which is going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And what are we going to pass into that? We're going to pass in the custom counter. And oh, it's kind of gone broken over 2 lines. There's a not very responsive CSS from Bill here. You can see the word numbers gone underneath. But yeah, that gives you a way to kind of grab data from the list and then use it to restyle the list. But it's still just really good semantic HTML. Like if we look at this, ordered list with LIs. That's it. and each one has a before in front of it. Pretty cool, right? Okay, let's look at another very cool trick which I use from day to day called text truncating. And it's our friend, Phil Murray again. Let's close this. So text truncating is super useful because when you make an application, you're most likely going to give the user some sort of interactivity with it, okay? It's going to be like, give your application a name or give your video game character a title or things like that. The thing is that users are freaking mental and they're going to type in crazy things. And even though you could say, oh, make the input have a max length of like 10 characters, somebody's going to type in all capital M's, which takes up way more room than you think it's going to in your app. So this is really nice. Text truncating is really, really good tool. So this is a really long title, ... Says that the actual text for this is a really long title that will go outside the box. So rather than, let's take it away. Rather than seeing this, hello. Okay, there it is. It's actually pushed it down. That's not too bad in this case, but let's imagine there's 5 of these in a row, and one title's this size, one title's this size, one title's this size, one title's this size. It makes all the boxes look weird on the page when they sit in a row. But if we force it into one, boom, you get this really nice effect where if there's enough room, it will render more of it. In fact, I should really make this. Let's make Bill Murray 100% width so you can see that. Image width 100%. Okay, max width 300. Okay, let's go max width 100%. Now you can see that if I look at this on a small screen, I get the small title truncated. And the bigger I go, the more I see of the title. So it's like, it's really responsive. It's like listening, well, not listening, but it's adapting to the size of the screen that it can be put in. And that is very, very nice whenever you're letting users input things, because they will enter the most crazy thing you've ever thought of when you give them the power to do that. Okay. Next, let's have a look at positioning. So I said earlier on that you should never use position for doing layouts. Always use grids or use flexes. But position does have some very, very cool qualities. For example, this is a thing called position sticky. And this is really nice because it means that elements can stick to where the web page is. It works particularly well if you have a large amount of content. And then say, for example, on the left-hand side, you had a navigation. You don't want the user to scroll past the navigation and then they get to the bottom and they're like, oh, I want to read the next thing. Scroll the whole way back up again with my finger and then find that, press it. This is very nice because if I scroll down, look at the sticky guy, he sticks to the top. And when I scroll back up, he stops when he touches his partner. And that is very, very simple to do. Let's have a look at the HTML. Could not be easier. We have a header. We have a div with it's called parent, and a div that is called child, and it's also got a class of sticky. And then we got the footer. So let's see what this does. Header, footer, normal boring stuff. Parent is 200 viewport height, which means the only reason I did this is so there's room to scroll. So it's 200 times the size of the viewport. Very, very, very cool. Viewport height and viewport width. It doesn't work very well in CodePen because the viewport is actually bigger than what we're seeing on the screen. But viewport width is very, very good for, say, for example, whenever you're trying to style your very base styles for your HTML and for your body. Like you could make them height 100 viewport height, 100 viewport width, and it makes it exactly the size of the page. Also, always remember to set your margins and your paddings on everything to 0. Otherwise, you're going to get things popping out of that frame. But yeah, viewport height, viewport width, really nice to mention while we're here. Okay, we don't need that. And also importantly, position relative. Like we said before, if we use position relative, position absolute will stick inside it. Just the same for position sticky. So here's our child with the basic stylings, background color purple, color white, display block, blah, 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 all easy stuff. But position sticky. So if I made this position absolute, you'll see that it doesn't move. It sticks to where it is inside its parent. And if I made it position fixed, it would do something different as well, where it would be fixed to the page no matter where. Don't recommend this very much, to be honest. This causes all sorts of responsive problems. But for this example, we're looking at... Shoot.
First question of the stream has come in.
All right.
Related to what you're looking at right now. Just curious, how does 100 VH look on mobile? So the question is, does it look weird on mobile? Or
it does not look weird on mobile. Here's why people, I think why this person is asking this, because mobile can be strange. Where the hell is my mobile phone? It can be weird in that it has a search bar at the top of Chrome, which is positioned I can explain it better here, actually. We got a search bar at the top of the Chrome, right, which is position absolute, basically. So it looks like this. No, position fixed, sorry. It looks like this is the top of your website. Let's go to top 0 with 100%. 100%. So it looks like this is the top of your website, right? But actually, it doesn't count that. It has this search bar that like sticks on the top. So you scroll past it and the search bar disappears. I'll actually show you an example of this in a second too. So the weird one is on Chrome. When you first look at it, you think, oh, there should be no room to scroll here. Then when you scroll down, the search bar hides itself. And then it's actually 100% viewport height. So it actually works. It works really well with everything. Here is the caveat to that. This is what you need. This is the most important thing. This is called the, oh my goodness, it's gone. The everything selector, basically. A star means I will give this style to everything. So you need 3 things when you start a project. Margin 0, no margin on anything. It makes it very confusing to work. You will apply margins as you want them. Don't let the HTML tell you what should be styled like this, because every HTML element has default styles. Every H1 has margin top and bottom, which breaks layouts, makes it very confusing. This is so weird when you first started working with CSS and HTML. And this last one we really, really, really want on here is box sizing, border box. These 3 magic spells are the key to understanding what's actually going on. Box sizing, okay, let's start from the top. Margin means no elements have margin by default. That is great because margin can be very confusing. It pushes things away from each other in a way that's not intuitive, in my opinion. Padding is pretty simple. Like it pushes things in. It's much more intuitive. So that's cool. That we'll leave that. But box sizing is padding's best friend, because you say, I want you to be 100% width, but I want to have 20 pixel paddings. You've actually told it you want it to be 100% plus 20 pixels. But by putting box sizing border box on, it actually means that will never happen. It always pushes things inwards because it's like the border is the box, not the other way around. So it means that you can add padding without breaking any layout and having any weird, unintuitive results. So number 1 tip actually so far, forget everything cool in CSS. Start every project with this. And you could probably throw your fonts on here as well. Your font family is probably a good place to go here too. I really hate serif, so let's go sans serif. So yeah, that applies it to every single element on your page, which is super, super nice. Did that answer your question? Please hit the comments again. If not, I'd be really happy to try and elaborate on that even further. No, I think I lost that a little bit. Okay, I'll fix that one later. Okay.
No follow-up question at this time. So I think we covered it.
Perfect.
Well. Thank you.
Perfect. No problem. Here's another really nice example of. Did that not used to be purple? Oh, it doesn't not like this zoomed in. I think that's what it is. 0. Let's maybe change the layout on this. There we go. Okay. I'll zoom back in for the code in 1 second when I show you what this does. But this is an example of a nice way to kind of interact a little bit of JavaScript, which is very, very simple here. I'll zoom in on this in a second. But in JavaScript, we have a debounce function, which means when I scroll the page, it doesn't happen on every single every single pixel. It happens once in every 10 pixels. I'll show you why that's important in a second. It means that the page doesn't lag hard whenever you load it. We got a nice bunch of CSS variables here we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, what happens? Okay, so when I scroll the page, it's tracking that in the JavaScript, and it's going to dynamically apply CSS. So I got my page title, and as I scroll down, ooh, that used to be more fluid. I don't think this is liking my screen zooming and stuff. Yeah, there we go. That's a little bit better. Wow, this is super buggy with me sharing my screen. Okay, it should be like, yeah, okay, that's a bit better. And then when you scroll down, it sticks to the top of the page. It changes its color, it changes its padding, because it's a very nice feature. You have a lot of important stuff in your header, like your title, your logo, your navigation, things like your connect button. All those things are really important. So you kind of want them to be on screen at all times. So this one is like going to be normal. Then when you scroll down, it becomes a sticky header. And it means you can scroll the whole website. You could have like a back to top or something. You can click here and it will zoom back up again. Wow, that is not liking that at all. There we go. Weird. Okay. Now let me zoom in.
Yeah,
a
it must
little
just
bit
be a delay in the recording, but I'll tell you, at least a couple times there, it looked real smooth, Bill. And so I think we're able to get an idea. Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, there we go. Sort of. It doesn't like going to the top. It's really weird. I don't know why that is. Anyway, so what's happening here? Well, very simply, you could almost ignore this because it's a boilerplate. It's a copy and paste. It's a debounce, which means if I didn't have this, it's tracking the scroll of the page. So without the debounce, it would basically track so much data that it would cause the page to lag really hard when I scrolled. So that just prevents lagging. Basically, like we're just checking to see if we're touching the top of the screen. Check element is top, and that has to just check that. And then if it is in the top, we want to add a new class called is page top. And if it isn't on the top, we remove the class is page top. Let's look at this class. Very, very simple stuff. Oh, hey, look, check it out. We got the stars. Oh, here, sorry, I forgot to zoom for you guys. There we go. I forgot about that. So we got the usual stuff I always say, the border box. I didn't put margin and padding on that, weirdly. Must have forgotten. Nothing important there, really, just the H1. So is page top H1? This is this big guy here that we see. The background color will be red, font size 30, gets smaller, and its position fixed. But without that class, it doesn't have any of that stuff. It's just an H1. So you see it like here, where it's blue. It's position relative, so like you can see it moves with the page, which is what you expect. But once the bounce function is hit, I think that's what's lagging it a little bit. It's because I'm screen sharing and it's more complicated what's going on inside there. The tracking of the screen of the scroll is quite like taxing for the browser. I'm seeing browser I'm sharing my screen with. This kind of makes sense now. But when I scroll, it touches, it realizes that it's on the top of the page, and it applies that new class to it. And very, very, very simple stuff. Like that's really kind of nice interaction with like almost no code. It really hates going to the top again. There we go. So yeah, eventually it kind of kicks in. But that's another nice example of padding, of positioning and good uses for it. Not really for layout, but for kind of more advanced interactions like that. Let's leave this. I do not want to save. Okay, CSS variables. That's keyframe animation. Okay, I think I was going to look at the one I just closed there to show you some variables. Page sticky example. Yeah, okay. So this one is like basically like if you know what a variable is in JavaScript, I'm sure, but just to make you aware that these variables also exist inside CSS. So the first thing you want to do is at the very top of your CSS file, you want to define a root. And inside that root, you can add anything you want here. So don't think that just because these are colors, it's all it can do. Let's say the font size is 16. So we're going to go dash dash, and it has to start with a dash dash. Font size 24 px. Then we can come down here and we can use it in here. So we type in var and then a function, and we pass in font size. Oops. So this used to only be possible while using something like styled components, or that didn't even exist back in the day. Other things were like less or Sass, like pre-compilers. But now this is just a very simple font size 16. Why did I write that in there? No, this is just a very kind of simple way of using variables just inside CSS. Where did that say 16? Where did I type that in HTML? Oh, yeah, here we go. That really confused me. So get rid of that 16, and then we can see that all of the font size for everything is now no longer 16, wherever that is. It's now got much bigger. And then we could change that again here to be like 44 or something really huge, and everything will render massive. So why is that really powerful for your application? Well, maybe not as much for font size. Okay, that's maybe not a great example, but let's say, for example, that you had like specific padding or specific border radius or specific colors for your site. Maybe you want to centralize all them instead of having blue written as a hash here, like as a hex code 100 times to your website. And then the client comes and they say, hey, look, our company colors are changing. We want to change them. Better than like batch replacing everything. Just so much easier to use a variable. Those things can also be used to store like your border radius. You know, like maybe you're going to decide in a year's time that you don't want curved corners on everything. You want everything to look like, you know, a square, because fashion changes as it does. You can update all these things super easy. So I highly recommend putting all of any of these reoccurring values in your CSS. They should always be saved as variables in the root, and then they can just be accessed, as we saw, straight through here. Nice and easy. And we don't want that anymore. Let's go back to 14px. Boom. Okay. So that's some kind of layouty stuff. Some good tips. But here's really where some really cool stuff happens in CSS. So a lot of websites, a lot of applications are quite static and not very interesting for the user to look at. But CSS has a lot of cool techniques for this. So let's change this again. Is this one? Yes, that's keyframe. Okay, maybe I don't have a good one. Let's start a new one. New pen. So the first one is transition, which is super easy. Let's go for button. We'll give it a class, not a class name, which I'm used to writing for React, class of anim, because it's a little animation. We'll write hi fill on it. We'll close the button. We want the anim to have background color. COL color of aqua something, aquamarine. There we go. We want it to have some padding. 10px. Okay, that looks horrible. I love it. Then when we want to have some animation on this, we want to show interaction. So if I go over this, nothing happens. It's like kind of like doesn't really show me that I can click it or anything. One thing I would definitely add in here is also to put a cursor on it. CURS cursor is pointer. Now we have a nice improvement that we look like a pointer. Outline none and border none. A little bit nicer. Let's go for some border radius too. Border dash radius 20px. There we go. We're looking a little bit more Moralis-y now. And the padding, let's put 20 left and right. There we go. That's a much more Moralis-y button. So we want to show the user that they can interact with it. Obviously, we have our cursor put in here. Let me just go big on CSS like I always should. Cursor's in here, which is nice. But we want to put a little bit of interactivity in that, okay? So let's go for anim, and we're going to put a hover state on that. So doing this, just like the dot before and dot after for the pseudo tags, we can use it's not a dot, it's a colon. We can use the colon hover, which means anytime the user hovers on it, it's going to change this. Yes, Phil?
You make it say GM. And then when we click it, it can say GM.
Say GM. Okie dokie. I'm not gonna add the JavaScript for that, but we could. It's been a while actually. Like, let me think. We could just write the JavaScript into the HTML panel, I guess. But yeah, I think we need to do a document.query selector or something. Yeah, that's like
I don't want to steer you too far off course.
No, you're good. You're good. It's just been a while. It's just been a while since I wrote it. Document.query selector, and then I think it's like this, and then dot. No, it's going to be a string maybe. Dot anim.
Now that said, Bill, we've got another live stream starting in about 5 minutes. So we want to make sure
oh my goodness.
Wrap up
oh my goodness.
Anything we add here. And what I'm going to do is invite everybody who's in this stream, come on over to gather.town. We're going to be watching the live stream over there. After that live stream, we're going to do follow-up questions on this stream and the following stream. So it's a double feature today.
Okay, really quick then. So I hover on it, it goes blue. That kind of sucks though, because we want to have animation. So transition, 0.3 seconds. Nope, transition. What do we want to transition between? All, which means anything that changes. 0.3 seconds. Let's say ease out, in and out. That's fine. And now when we do it, ooh, nice. And we can change anything here. So the padding could be padding 10px and 15px. Boom. And then you can see it gets bigger and smaller. Okay. And then let me go through some other examples real quick. So that's kind of like a slightly boring version of animation. Here I have another nice example. Let me change. Boom. Of using keyframes. So you can see the HTML is very, very simple. Just like four parts of a cloud. Then his eyes and his mouth and stuff, all really simple. Then basically we got the cloud, but where's the cool part? Yeah, we got keyframes in here. So at 0%, we want to take the part of the cloud, and you can see he's kind of moving around a little bit and his eyes are blinking. These are all done via keyframe animation. I had some other more simple examples of this to show you first, but let's keep moving through this. These are all here on my pen. My code pen if you want to see them. We got a very nice bouncing Pokeball that I made. Also, again, look, you can actually see there's zero JavaScript in here. This is all CSS. This is like there's very little HTML here, but there's lots of very, 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 very nice CSS. You can see we're using befores again here. I think that is actually for the little dot on the Pokeball. No, it's the shine, that little shiny bit. That's what the before is. The ball itself. Yes, more afters. My goodness. Okay, the keyframe for the ball bounce. So I've framed it at 0%, where it's the bottom is low. The clip path is like the squidginess of it, the way it squeezes down. Then at 50%, it goes down to -50, so it's down here before it bounces. 70%, it squeezes up again, and it's like in the same position. So that's why it hits the ground and stays, then bounces. And then the shadow as well below it. So like, how did I write all of the CSS? Like, did I know how to do this? Can I teach you how to do this? No, this is just like time and experimentation. So I started with one ball and just made it go up and down. Then I made it squeeze by doing this clip path. Just experimented over and over and over and over and over again until I had something looking cool. So unfortunately, there isn't like a science to this. It's just more like an art. You just got to keep on kind of plugging away at it and experimenting as much as possible. Let me jump back to my presentation there. I think I got too heavy on the CSS examples. So we looked at fluid layouts. We looked at flex first grid. We looked at breakpoints before and after, truncating texts, positions, variables, transitions, and animations. A lot of cool stuff in CSS3. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about today is accessibility. Super, super important for your application to be successful. We have Web Ali, which is Web11Y. You can Google that. Accessibility has 11 words or 11 letters, so they shortened it to ALL or 11 for 11 and a Y. That's to do with your screen readers, so that how people with different disabilities can interact with your application. It's to do with high contrast for people who have different abilities of how they can read and interpret information. It's to do with scalable fonts, so people like my granny my mom, can read and zoom in and zoom out. And it's also really importantly to do with device accessibility. Your application needs to look awesome on mobile, desktop, TV, and even on the new iPhone, which has the super cool dynamic island. I wish I could have talked more about accessibility. I'm super passionate about it. I think I put a little bit too much content in here. That's another slide for another day. And then we were going to have a quick look at Web3 UI Kit. I'm sure you all know about the Web3 UI Kit. I'm very passionate about it. We built it in-house and we've made it open source. If I can in any way inspire you to do anything for an open source community, please come and help us with the kit. Our documentation is a little bit lacking, but I promise you by the end of this week, I will have it up to date because we changed to a new monorepo. As you can see at the bottom, monorepo, updated docs, please help. So I'm updating the docs to make it much easier for you to onboard and contribute. Really thank everyone who has contributed and takes any interest in the kit. It means a lot to me. It's like our little baby project and work. And now I was going to have a front end ask me anything so I could help you with all your Z-index pains. But maybe there isn't time for that, Phil. But thank you very much for listening, everybody. Sorry I got too passionate about the CSS. I'm a big CSS fanboy. Thank you very much for being part of the stream.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill. I'm just getting ready to start our other stream here. Excellent workshop. See everybody in GatherTown, and I'll also see you guys in the next stream. Have a great rest of the day.
Later, everybody.